In our last video, we looked at a couple unique things in Port Huron, one being the house with the tree in the middle of it, and the other one was Little Dodge City. And today we'd like to look at a couple of restaurants that I think are unique. Neither one of them are within the city limits of Port Huron. One was north and one was south of Port Huron. The first one we're going to look at, we'll look at the southern one. This was at 8887 Gratiot, which was in Columbus. Today, according to Google Maps, this is what it looks like, pretty much a boarded up building. And according to Google, there's no longer a business there. But at one time, there was a very vibrant restaurant here. It was called Amos Food and Spirits. So what set this apart from all the other restaurants around? Well, the food you ate may have been walking around behind the restaurant on four legs not too long before you ate it. That is, if you had a buffalo burger. They didn't serve just buffalo burgers. Of course, they served a variety of food, and the hamburgers, you had a choice, either a beef hamburger or a buffalo hamburger. The restaurant was owned by a native of Belgium, Emil Claerhout. He came to America in 1900. He opened his restaurant at Snagerville in 1934, and the address is now considered Columbus. A familiar landmark for many years had been the live buffalo behind the restaurant. You are always welcome at Amos. And at times he had as many as 12 buffalo out behind the restaurant, as you can see here. And not only did he have buffalo, but he also had some tame deer and some goats, something for the kids to enjoy. All restaurants have their ups and downs, peaks and valleys, but Mr. Claerhout's restaurant certainly had a couple of deep valleys. A couple of devastating things happened to the business and to him personally. In 1975, some of his animals were slaughtered. Someone shot 2 buffalo, a sheep, 2 white deer in the corral behind the restaurant. Whoever it was hauled the white deer away. Apparently they were after meat. Buffalo makes fine meat, but I guess all they could handle were the 2 white deer. The article says that the slain sheep were found next to the fence. Perhaps whoever did this thing were considering taking the sheep also. Maybe they were frightened off by the rest of the buffalo. The deer and the buffalo were in together. The young buffalo were shot about 8 times. She said 10 deer were kept inside the fenced enclosure along with 10 buffalo. We now have 8 brown deer left and 8 buffalo, she said. The person speaking in the article was Mrs. Schuster, who owned the animal along with her father, Mr. Claerhout. There was a total of $2,600 reward money offered, but I'm not sure if they ever found the culprits that did this or not. But there's some sick people out there. The second deep valley was more personal in nature. On September 4th, 1975, this article ran in the Times Herald. Emil the Buffalo Claerhout. I told him to shoot me. I couldn't take any more. I'm not going to read all of it, but I will highlight some of it for you. I should be dead. I told them to shoot me. I couldn't take any more, said Emil the Buffalo Claerhout. Early Tuesday, 2 men, their faces masked with nylon stockings, forced their way into Claerhout's home, 200 yards east of the restaurant, and took his life savings, estimated at nearly $200,000 in cash. Claerhout said he worked in the kitchen at the restaurant until about 9 p.m. Monday. I was washing dishes. I went home a little after that, got undressed, and was lying in bed watching the football game. No, I wasn't wearing pajamas, just my shorts. I was waiting for the news when all of a sudden something hit me in the head. The next thing I knew, my shorts were being cut. I was being turned upside down and something was being stuffed in my mouth. The only light on in the room was from the television, and then they dragged me into the living room. They said to me, "Oh man, we want your money." I told them all I had was in my pocketbook. Then they hit me in the face and head. I couldn't move. They had my arms and legs tied with cords from a fan and lamp. I got loose once and grabbed at one of them, but they pushed my arms up behind my back so hard I nearly passed out, said Clairhout. They put their shoes against my neck and head and kicked me when I was on the floor. I know I passed out once because they tossed water in my face to bring me back. They tore the house apart. I never thought anyone would find the shoebox under the living room floor. I pushed the box back with a pole at least 10 to 12 feet. Even when they had the money, they wanted more. I couldn't do anything. They had me tied like a steer, and they kept beating me in the head, said Clairhout. Clairhout said as far as he knew, no one knew where he kept his money. He said he didn't believe he had any enemies. Clairhout laid helpless on the living room floor for more than 10 hours before his pleas for help were heard by a grandson who come to check on the horse in the front of the Clairhout home. I begged God for someone to hear me. I didn't think anyone was ever going to find me. I was going to die, that's the feeling I had, said Clairhout. He did not comment on his distrust for banks other than to say, I just didn't think something like this would ever happen. Well, you know the old saying, you can't keep a good man down. And a month later, this appeared in the paper. The buffalo keeps busy. I'm still kind of shaky, but thank God I'm alive. Of course, the buffalo was the nickname that everyone called Amo. Amo the Buffalo Clairhout was 85 years old when he passed away. But the memory and traditions of the restaurant was being carried on by his daughter, Madeline. Madeline, who was a partner in the restaurant when her father died, worked with her dad for 43 years at Amos. And she kept up Amos' fine traditions. Madeline is still maintaining the herd of 12 live buffalo, 23 fallow, Sika, and Formosa deer, 3 ponies and pigs and peacocks in the zoo area at the back of the 40-acre restaurant site. Madeline says there will be buffalo burgers. At some point, Madeline sold the restaurant, but then later got it back in a lawsuit, and her son, John Schuster, took it over. I have an article here on it, but what I thought was interesting was this section right here. Why the name Buffaloes? He says, my grandfather Emo was of Belgian descent, and in the old country, Belgians were known for having hard heads, and they were called buffaloes. This article was in 1991. I don't know when they closed, but there's nothing I could find after 1995. I assume they closed about around that time. And I know that up until that point, the buffalo herd kept getting smaller until there was just one buffalo out back. And you can see a photograph of it here. In this photograph, it appears that this buffalo is letting the little girl pet him. Well, I guess he is, because actually that's a buffalo head that was mounted on the wall inside of Amos. The restaurant eventually changed its name to Amos Buffalo Tavern. I have a couple of photographs of the inside we can look at. Today, this building doesn't look like much. Perhaps even a new business has gone in there since Google took this picture. But at one time, this was the place to be. The second unique restaurant we want to look at is north of town, and that's the Dorsey House. Today, it's a restaurant, lounge, and a banquet center. But what makes this restaurant unique is the history. It was originally built in 1847 and still there today. When you stop to think of the location of it, well, looking down from this satellite map, it's kind of out in the boonies. It's on the corner of Wildcat Road and Beard Road. Why was it built in such a remote location? It was originally built in 1847 to serve as a halfway house for those traveling by horse and buggy between Port Huron and Yale. Although it's a quick trip today, it was a very long trip back then, and that was a good stopping place about halfway. In 1847, when it was built, Michigan had been a state for only about 10 years. James Knox Polk of Tennessee was our president, and the United States and Mexico were at war. St. Clair was the county seat. Port Huron was an unincorporated village. Today, looking eastward going down Beard Road, or also called 136, it looks like this. You can see the Dorsey House up ahead on the left. But when I was a boy, it looked like this, just a small, narrow gravel road. You can still see the Dorsey House up ahead on the left. But in 1847, St. Clair County had only a few primitive roads. The original tavern was on what would have been little more than a wagon trail. It also was near the Black River, the first Michigan valley to be heavily logged. In 1849, a toll road, the Port Huron and Lapeer Plank Road, was built through Clyde Mills, or Wadhams today. A branch of this road passed the tavern. This is what the original Dorsey House looked like. Not a real good picture, but you can see there was quite a bit of what I call rickrack or lattice on that top floor. But folks my age probably remember more like this. But there were some renovations that took place over the decades, and I think this photograph here is probably what it looked mostly like before they tore it down and built the new one. If you look at those photographs closely, you can see the signage on the building changed as well. Today it looks like this. But here's an old one I found that has a young lady posing in front of it. And look at this ad I found from 1964. Some specials. Friday special is perch or whitefish for $1, pickerel for $1.25, and the Sunday special, dinner or spare ribs including salad, potatoes, rolls, and butter, $1.50. What a deal. The original owners of the Dorsey House, of course, was the Dorsey family, but it's had several owners since then. But it was Edwin and Mary Sawden that made the decision to demolish the old one and build a brand new one. Of course, there was some controversy in the area about should be a local landmark and should survive and stay there, but the old restaurant had a lot of health violations. It was an old building to start with old plumbing, electrical. It was very expensive to try to make it up to the standards that it should be. And so they made a decision to build a brand new building. And so in 1996, a brand new building did go up. And that's the building you see today. Here's a couple of photos of the inside of the restaurant. (1847 to 2020), 173 years. Who knows? Maybe it'll be there another 173 years. The place where your grandfather ate and drank. Perhaps now we should say where our great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather ate and drank. Join me in my next video and we'll see what there is to see.